Yes, we're all here, but we're so glad that you're here inside the press box as we fire up a brand new day, a Tuesday, the 15th of July, 2025, episode 1167. Mike Grace coming to you from the MGL production studios just outside of Atlanta, Georgia, which is a pretty hot place to be these days. You got the home run derby last night, all-star game tonight. Beyonce was in town over the weekend. Oh, yeah, that little thing called SEC Football Media Days going on as well. And that's a big topic here because yours truly, an old play-by-play guy. And so I met a bunch of my greatest friends in press boxes all across the country. We'll invite a bunch of them on with us for the next couple of hours and talk about SEC Football Media Days and anything else that comes up. I do have my regular guys. One of our regulars is out. Jason Powers, the director of officiating for the NFL Flag Leagues, is prepping for their championship week. He's up in Canton, Ohio, where Thursday through Sunday they'll have their championships there at Hall of Fame Village. It's kids ages 8 through high school ages, and they got a ton of them up there. And our man Jason has his hands full, so we give him the week off. My other regular Tuesday and Thursday co-host serves Learfield as the Florida Gator Sports Network studio host. He is Mike Mote. Mr. Mote, SEC Football Media Days. We've been waiting. Finally here, man.
Yeah, it is. We're right in the middle of it. I thought yesterday was kind of what we expected from, Greg Sankey, who gave the State of the Union address, I guess, if you will, for college football in the SEC. And wasn't surprised by a whole lot about what he said. I mean, he's not going to say that we've reached a deal with this or that. But I do think you come away going, okay, they're still talking. They're still trying to figure out a few things. But, football lives on. I think he did say that one of the things that I took away from it was, college athletics is not broken, but it's under some stress right now.
Yes, it is.
I think that's a very diplomatic statement.
Yeah,
I think there's some people think that might go one way a little more than the other, but I truly thought that what he said was not anything I wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised to hear what he had to say. I just put it that way. And I thought the coaches said, what they normally say and all that stuff. So yeah, we're well underway, and we get a little bit more of it today, and on we go. But yeah, this is a fun week for sure. And Atlanta, my Lord, if you didn't find something to do in Metro Atlanta this weekend, something's wrong with you. Goodness,
indeed, sir. No doubt about that. Well,
so
I've got
much
Mike Mote with me today and pulling overtime this week. One of my regular Monday, Wednesday, Friday guys. He works the NFL, college basketball, college football, and more for Westwood One, Compass Media, even the Braves for FanDuel during the summertime. He is Colin Lacy, who comes to us today from inside the College Football Hall of Fame, back on Digital Drive for day 2 of SEC Football Media Days, joined by Coach Brent Osborne, a decade of high school football coaching under his belt. He's Colin's on-air partner with the Foundry Broadcasting in Statesboro, their broadcast of Southeast Bullock High School. So, fellas, SEC Media Days, first for both of you guys. I know, Colin, you've been to a bunch of Sun Belt Conference Media Days. How does the SEC match up?
My buddy down listening in Mobile at JT Crabtree with South Alabama is going to laugh when I say this. It's not quite the same, boys. It's a little different than Sun Belt Conference Media Days, but it's you've heard people talk about it day in and day out of just a first-class event put on by the SEC. You've got 2 different locations. You've got the College Football Hall of Fame here, and then across the street there's actually a sky bridge that connects the Omni Hotel that's across the street that's got a lot of the ESPN setups, the electronic media setups, but we are on the second level of the College Football Hall of Fame, and anybody that's been to the Hall of Fame, it's kind of the exhibits where you go around in like a horseshoe, and then the main media is on the turf field down on the first floor, and you've got windows that overlook it, and so really cool setup, really well done by the SEC, and it's been fun the first day, and we got 3 more of these bad boys.
Yes, indeed, we do. Brent, your thoughts on day number 1, man?
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun. Definitely an experience that never gotten experience before since I've never been to any media days. So I feel like I'm getting a nice warm welcome to how they should all be. But the food's really good. I like to eat, so the media dining has been really good as well, and good to see a bunch of people that you get to see on TV and listen to on the radio, and have some good, genuine conversations about stuff and about college football as a whole.
Yeah, you like the good sponsors for the food. That's why you get the good food at the media.
I was just about to comment that if they're thirsty, it's not a problem. I see one of the official partners of the SEC, Dr. Pepper's to go here. He said, "How many Dr. Pepper cans have you got on your table there, man?"
Boys, I feel like Forrest Gump in the sense that I feel like
Yeah,
I've drank 15 Dr. Peppers.
I mean, Mike,
Now,
Colin,
what
we
is your
walked in.
flavor, Colin? What is your big
Oh,
flavor?
I'm the OG Dr. Pepper. I saw they've got like 15 different flavors of
Yeah.
Dr. Pepper, which is a little overkill if you
Cherry,
ask
they
me.
yeah. It's already 23 flavors mixed in, isn't it, or
Right.
something like that?
You don't need
23.
any
Yeah,
more.
I suggest in order to help your sugar levels to maybe consume one or two zero sugar ones. Those are
Nah,
good.
that's overrated, Mote.
Yeah.
No,
Think
it's not. If you're diabetic, it's not. I can tell you. You still want Dr. Pepper, you'll drink it.
That's what we couldn't even walk by the dining room on our way in this morning at 6:30 or 7 o'clock, and I saw Colin just go grab 2 or 3 and put in his
Well, you
pocket.
want to make sure he had enough. Yeah.
Yeah, Brent's
I don't blame
the responsible one. He got the fancy water bottle,
him.
but
Oh.
yeah, I had to grab a couple of fully leaded Dr. Peppers.
Well, early in the morning, you need some
Exactly.
caffeine to get rolling. I understand that. For
Absolutely.
Sure. It'll be a long day today.
It is today. Well, yesterday, day one, saw the commissioner take the stage and gave the state of the conference address. And as you said, Mike Mote, he said college athletics not broken, but it is stressed. And he talked about that a good bit. And then we talked to the actual coaches and players, LSU head coach Brian Kelly, South Carolina head coach Shane Beamer, Ole Miss head coach Lane Kiffin, and Vanderbilt head coach Clark Lee, and of course their players that were there as well. And today, Auburn will lead things off. Head coach Hugh Freeze. He's going to have a few questions, I would think, for him heading into is it season number 4 or 3?
Three.
Three
Yep.
for Hugh Freeze. So we'll see what he has to say today. Also, Georgia head coach Kirby Smart and the Bulldogs will be there. Tennessee's Josh Heupel and Texas and Steve Sarkisian. Most folks' favorites, I guess, along with Georgia as the favorites to win the SEC championship and perhaps a national championship as well. And we'll see who's floating around Media Row or Digital Drive. Mike Mote, I'm still trying to get used to that. It's
Yeah,
been
I could have called it Media Row. She didn't have to change it to from Radio Row. That kind of, makes us sad a little bit for those of us who were there
yeah.
so many years when it was Radio Row, but it is now Digital Drive because
Yeah.
there's so many podcasts and streaming this and that. And that's I mean that is, I guess more appropriately named, but yeah, we missed the Radio Row name. I don't know, did they do that with the Super Bowl this year? I mean, did they change it with Super Bowl? Was it still Radio Row there for that week?
I want to say it was still Radio Row.
Okay, yeah.
At least I heard people still calling it Radio Row, but heck, I've still been calling this Radio Row, and it's not. So
yeah, but you do see a lot of people, and I think there are more people there for SEC Media Days than probably a lot of the media days combined. I mean, even
yeah.
with the Big Ten going to Vegas this year, do you really think anybody wants to go out there where it's 109
Well,
during the day?
and I was
Crazy.
seeing the Big 12 had media day. I think it was inside the Star in Dallas, and they had essentially the big stage down on the field, and then they just had probably 5 to 10 tables set up on the back of the field, back in the opposite end zone, and that's where with their quote unquote Radio Row Digital Drive, what in the heck you want to call it, was, and there was a media member there. I can't remember who it was, and I wish I could, but there was a media member there that was talking about how Deion Sanders had stood up all of his commitments on Radio Row and didn't come to any of them, and he was showing the background. I'm like, that's Radio Row. Like you've got half the field that's set up for the main press area, the main stage where the coaches talk and whatnot, and then it's just a couple of tables, and they weren't all full, and so it's weird. And the impressive part about the SEC, and I'm sure it'll taper off as we go because the first 2 days are kind of the ones that a lot of folks are coming for, especially today with the Auburn, the Georgia that are close by, and a lot more media can get to it.
Sure.
But this is a 4-day thing, and this is going to be slammed all 4 days. You get the Big 12, the ACC go over 2 days, and you've got so many teams that you've got to go through in one day, and it's still not full. Yet this is full over 4 days.
We also had a ton of fans here getting autographs.
Yeah, that's the
Lobby
thing.
was full.
That's the thing I'll be interested to see. I was listening to our buddy Chris Gordy in Locked On SEC podcast that he was doing with the rest of the Locked On folks around the league. And everybody was talking about the fanfare that Arch Manning is probably going to get when he walks into.
I would think
play.
so. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they've got a great setup. And Mike, you know how I love to people watch.
Oh, yeah.
So they've got a nice little perch here on the front of Digital Drive, out where Pat Smith and Landon Roberts are with jogs, and it kind of overlooks where the walkway coming in, where all the fans come for autographs and whatnot.
Right,
So
right.
I'm going to be posted up right there whenever Arch Manning and the Texas Longhorns come into the building, just to see what the fanfare. Because Gordy said that it was going to be probably close to a Tim Tebow or something like that. Whenever
At least, oh yeah, yeah. I would think so. It may not rival Nick Saban at the Winfrey Hotel in Hoover that we had for a number of years, but it might be second to that. I'm telling you. The day will start at 8:30 Eastern Time. John McCade, the SEC's coordinator of football officials, will address the main room, and then the teams get going at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Auburn will take the podium first and make their rotation. Hugh Freeze and company, Georgia, I should say, Kirby Smart will follow that as well. Then the lunch break, and then they're back at 1:30 this afternoon for Tennessee's Josh Heupel and Texas's Steve Sarkisian. Before we kind of talk about what we expect to hear today, how about some highlights from yesterday? I've got some audio, including some from head coach Brian Kelly of the LSU Fighting Tigers. He's again addressed the media yesterday, talking about what they need to win a national championship, and it's on the defensive side of the ball.
Well, I think we've got an outstanding defensive coordinator and a defensive staff. Blake Baker is in my opinion, elite in the field of defensive coordinators. We needed to give him some more tools. And look, I've been the head football coach at LSU, and I know that we have not played the kind of defense necessary to win a national championship. I think we put a roster together in this offseason, along with young players that have taken lumps along the way as they've developed, and given Blake now the tools to play championship level defense, because clearly the 2023 offensive football team we had was good enough to win a national championship. We weren't good enough as a team. And a lot of that had to do with addressing some shortcomings we had on defense. We think we've done that. I love our roster. I love our team and the way they interact, the camaraderie of our group, the seriousness and focus, their intent. So I think we're going to have a defense that is going to be representative. And look, anytime you go on the road and play a team like Clemson, you better bring a defense with you.
That, of course, is the LSU opener coming up on August the 30th, not at a neutral site. That is actually at Clemson. So it will certainly be a test for Brian Kelly and the Tigers. And you talked about that defense last year, allowed 28 points per game, guys. In SEC play, it was 33 points per game. You're not going to win a national championship with those kind of numbers on the defensive side of the ball, Mr. Mote.
No, you're not. And I think one of the keys to LSU's season is how they start. If you go back over the last couple of years, they just, never got off of the schneid. When they played, Florida State, they were outmanned. Physicality at the line of scrimmage, LSU was beaten soundly, and I was surprised by that. I mean, I knew Florida State was good, but not that good. And then last year, a game that I really thought got away from LSU. They should have beat USC. That was not a very good USC team, as it turned out, but they should have won that game. So I think, the first game of the year, you hate to put that much pressure on the first game, but I think it sets the tone for what happens the rest of the way for LSU. They need to go in there and win that football game. All there is to it. They need to win it.
Two thoughts, Colin, is that with the new playoff situation, the expanded format, 12 teams getting in, a loss in that game would not eliminate LSU from national championship contention. But Brian Kelly's 0-3 in series openers while the LSU head coach. He does not want to see that streak run to 0-4, man.
No, and he brought that up yesterday in his media availability up on the main stage. He's like, look, I know what I am. I know what it is, but I also know that I think I have the best team that I've ever had, not just at LSU, but in his entire coaching career. And there's a lot of talent on this team. There's a lot of people talking about LSU, so I think that makes that game that much more important, not just for the lore of Brian Kelly, but I think also you have so many people that are high on LSU right now. I think if you lose that game, while it doesn't mean the detriment to your season, it's also something that can knock you down a peg. And not that that really means a whole heck of a lot at the end of August, but you get less and less people talking about it, and it's more of, okay, here we go again with LSU. I think they're going to turn that into, I don't want to say a statement game at the end of August because that sounds absolutely absurd, but I think that's one that can really set the tone for the season and be able to propel them going forward.
I think it means as much to Clemson, though, as it does LSU, because I think it's it's a huge game for the ACC. The ACC's got a huge week one. If you go you're looking at some of their matchups across the board, but I think Clemson is a team, and it's a to me they're very similar. You got a lot of experience at the quarterback position. You've got really good defenses, potentially. I think both of these teams need this game, and I think maybe Clemson thinks that hey, if we win this one, we might can afford to lose one down the road and
Yeah.
still be in the ACC conversation because you're not going to get as many bids to the playoffs from the ACC as you're going to from LSU. I mean, from the SEC. So I think this is equally as big of a game for Clemson, if not maybe a little more so, because it's at home. Number one, but number two, I think you just don't have as many opportunities if you're Clemson to get big game wins like that.
And I think that's what was interesting to me was yesterday when Brian Kelly was talking about that on the main media stage, and he addressed the, being 0-3 in the season starters for him since he's been there. That what I liked was that he talked about that they're not shying away from the importance of that season opener and how big of a game it is. He said they're actually kind of relishing it being a big game and it being an important game, not just because it's the next game or the first game, but also because they are playing a really, really good opponent to start the season, and the fact that they are 0-3 in the last 3 seasons to start the season. So he was very, very much on point with emphasizing not shying away from the pressure of it being a big and important game.
For what it's worth, our friend Phil Steele, in his 2025 College Football Preview magazine, looking at his 2025 preseason top 40, he's got LSU ranked 11th, Clemson ranked 2nd, and he's got Clemson as one of his favorites to win the national title in 2025. Good old Dabo. And of course, Brian Kelly mentioned this yesterday, and I should have had the clip of this. Did you hear him talking about his good friend Dabo?
Dabo.
That's what
Yes, we thought we heard him correctly.
Wasn't that what I heard? Dabo?
that was
Dabo?
one. He said it, and it took about a beat and a half. And then I looked at Brent. We were standing in the back, and I said, "Dabo."
Yeah, that's what he
Yeah,
said.
I
That's
was like, I
pretty
can
good.
tell.
Yeah.
Good old
we heard
Davo.
wrong.
I never knew that Clemson had a coach named Dabo.
Yeah, it's a new one on me.
It's always been
Yeah.
Dabo. As
I always thought it was Dabo, but that's just me. I
It's a
could be
bad
wrong.
look when you.
Maybe his friend and his close friends call him Dabo. Maybe
That's what I'm saying. I was going to say maybe it's a bad look though when you say a close friend and you mispronounce his name.
That old what's his name? He's a good friend of mine.
Well, look, we talked about this, and I've a broken record on this. So year 3 was always the big year for Brian Kelly at his previous stops. He won a conference championship at both Central Michigan, I think it was, and Cincinnati in year 3. He took Notre Dame to the BCS title game in year 3 with the Irish. But year 3 came and went, a 9-4 record, which was a bit of a disappointment. And year 4, maybe it's the year, huh?
Maybe more talent this year than he's ever had in any of his other places where he took them to the playoffs and championship game. I mean, he's got the tools. There really shouldn't be any excuses this year. That's what I think. And if you're going to do it, this is your year. You got a good quarterback. You got good receivers. You got a lot of stuff there. See if he can do it.
Well, we're just getting rolling with this edition of the Press Box on SEC Media Day, Day 2. Colin, Lacy, Brent, Osborne on site of the College Football Hall of Fame. Mike Mote in his studios on the other side of the Atlanta Metro, Douglasville, Georgia. Yours truly, Mike Grace, closer to Swanee, up on the northeast side of the Atlanta Metro. Glad to have you with us on great stations around the southeast, online 24/7, PressBoxRadio.com, and yes, streaming again on the Mike Grace Live Facebook page. Be very afraid. Video there, courtesy of our friend Colin Lacy. And again, Mike Grace Live on Facebook. When we come back, we're going to hear how much Ole Miss, or how much Lane Kiffin loves Ole Miss and Oxford. We'll hear Vandy quarterback Diego Pavia say he wants a championship. And we'll talk about the Auburn Tigers. They're first up today on SEC Media Days. We'll talk about them next in the prime time.
here inside the press box.
You're all welcome, whether it's Auburn, whether it's Georgia, whether it's Tennessee, whether it's South Carolina, whether it's Vanderbilt. You're welcome inside the press box on great radio stations around the Southeast, 20 affiliate partners in Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, Tennessee, and South Carolina. Also online, PressBoxRadio.com. And now, a live video courtesy of the Mike Grace Live Facebook page. You'll find us there and some great goodies as well on YouTube. Just search PressBox Radio on YouTube as well. All of yesterday's interviews are archived up there, thanks to Colin Lacy. And we're running live today right there as well. So you can find us there with the later today. We'll post all of today's interviews. I was under the impression, fellas, again, Mike Grace hanging out with Mike Mote and on site at the College Football Hall of Fame Media Days for the SEC, our Colin Lacy and his helper, Brent Osborne. I was under the impression that Auburn was leading things off today, but no, it's actually Georgia and Kirby Smart who will go first. He's brought his quarterback, Gunnar Stockton, his defensive back, Dalen Everett, and linebacker, C.J. Allen. Hugh Freeze then will go at 12:15 Eastern Time. Jackson Arnold, his quarterback, Keldrick Foss, defensive lineman, and Connor Liu, offensive lineman, will be here. Let's talk about Auburn. I mean, how big a deal is this for Hugh Freeze? You know, he's going to be asked about recruiting. You know, he's going to be asked about the line that both he and athletic director John Cohen threw out there a week or so ago in an interview regarding who's playing by the rules and who's not. Colin, what do you expect to hear from Hugh Freeze today, friend?
I don't know. He's one that I could see about 3 different directions of where they go, because you know he's going to get the questions about recruiting. You know he's going to get the questions about what the last couple of years have been. I could see him very well being the person that is just oh, well, we're looking ahead to this year, the usual coach speak that you hear every year. But I could also see him being one that is a little bit fiery today and kind of popping back at folks and essentially him just being tired of hearing it, which I don't know how you can be, but I could see him being the one, because Lane Kiffin didn't really give you a whole lot of the fireworks that you're used to hearing from Lane Kiffin. He was pretty vocal on what the salary cap and if that was going to happen yesterday, but there wasn't anything really to take a ton away from it. And I just wonder if Hugh Freeze is going to be that guy here today.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it could go either way. Like you said, I think that there are reasons for there to be some optimism at Auburn because you do have a new quarterback, and a lot of folks say their wide receiver room is good and all of that. But I think there's also some reasons to have a lot of questions because this has not gone as well as I think a lot of folks expected. They took a step backwards last year, and I don't think they can afford to do that again this time. You can't be 6-6 at the end of this year and expect the fan base to be happy, especially when you're seeing at least the reports about where Auburn ranks in the recruiting part of it. I mean, yeah, we know that the transfer portal is alive and well and all of that, but still, you know, you've got to build your program. You've got to have some. You can't be 80 something in recruiting if you're an SEC team expected to compete for playoff positioning. It's just not going to work out that way. We have not seen it that way, and I don't think it will ever be. So I think there are going to be some questions and there's some pressure. And it'd be interesting to see if Hugh Freeze feels that pressure and says anything about it today, because I think he does have some pressure on him. And if he doesn't feel that way, then I don't know what it's going to take, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and my thing, I know everybody wants to talk, and that's pretty much all there is to talk about at this point in the season, because you can put a depth chart together and in 6 minutes it'll be different. But I think recruiting is the big thing that everybody looks at now to try to get something. But Brent, you and I talked yesterday with Rusty Mansell that we'll hear from a little bit later on, and it's up on YouTube on the Press Box Radio YouTube page. But he's heavily involved in the recruiting in the state of Georgia, and he pretty much is the guru of recruiting in the state of Georgia. And he talked about not only how NIL has affected the high school recruiting side of it, but also how the transfer portal has affected what recruiting has turned into this year. I'm not going to say that you don't need to look at the recruiting numbers, but I think you look at them in a different light now than what you did 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah, you definitely do. I mean, the big thing that used to always happen, and I mean it still does today, is who's going to sign these 4 and 5 star recruits? Who's going to be able to get the most of those in here? And yes, some of those are coming in and making impacts right away. I mean, you've got your freaks that I think of like a Caleb Downs,
Yeah.
that comes in, and a Jeremiah Williams that comes in and makes an impact right away. But where a lot of teams are being able to separate themselves is getting in that transfer portal and being able to get those guys that are going to make impacts. Yeah, they may not be a 4 or a 5 star that's going to be like boosting their recruiting or their recruiting rank, but those guys are going to come in and make an impact right away. And that's something that Rusty talked about yesterday was when he talks to these coaches and talks to them about the high school recruiting process and everything, is that a lot of the college coaches, they can't take a risk on an unproved high school player when they've got kids in the transfer portal that have film from college that have proven themselves on the college level, and it kind of puts them in a really tough spot. And so, I do think that now with the transfer portal that the recruiting rankings for the most part are a little bit skewed just because you don't really factor in what teams have coming in from the transfer portal and what players they're bringing in. For instance, I mean, last year you're Ohio State and you go get Quinshaw Judkins and Caleb Downs from Alabama and Ole Miss. Well, guess what? That wasn't even factored into their recruiting. And so obviously they brought in some really good guys that aren't factored into those rankings. And so, but I do think that that's something that kind of skews the numbers just a little bit when it does come to recruiting as well.
Here's the bottom line for me in regards to Auburn and Hugh Freeze. He can appear today, and if he wants to read Edgar Allan Poe, it doesn't matter what he said. It doesn't matter what he says.
Sounds like The Rock.
Well,
It doesn't matter.
It really doesn't. It's about winning football games. I mean, again, he can say anything he wants to say, good, bad, indifferent. It does. He can no show. It doesn't matter. His job is the decision's going to be based on how many wins he comes with. He's got to win football games, guys.
Yeah, and he better win the first when he gets Baylor, because to me that's a huge win in his cap. Because and Baylor's good, folks. They're not just a middle of the road Big 12 team. A lot of folks think highly of them. We've talked to the guys from the Big 12 media day last week, and he has a lot of positives to say. I mean, that's an important game for both coaches, Dave Aranda and of course Hugh Freeze. But Hugh Freeze, as you said, Mike, I mean the pressure's on. I mean, you've had your 2 years. You had the Brian Harsin time where you didn't have any recruits. Well, you've had now 3 cycles almost of recruiting, 2 complete ones for sure. And you'd better figure it out. If you're not figuring it out by now, then when will you? And I think that's the question that Auburn fans have and should have. And regardless of what he says today, that ain't going to change their feeling about that.
And in the day and age of the transfer portal, you've got head coaches turning programs around like
a lot
that
quicker.
all over the country. Now, I'm not saying everybody's doing that, but I'm saying it's possible. And being the recruiter that he's supposed to be, being the quarterback guru that he's supposed to be. I mean, to me, yeah, the opener is big, but that SEC opener on the road, September 20th at Oklahoma,
Huge.
he takes the former Sooner quarterback, Jackson Arnold, back to Norman to open the SEC season for Auburn. I view that as a must win for that team. If they get off to an 0-1 SEC start, with Georgia their next SEC opponent, well, I got to think Texas A&M in between.
Well, and that's another team that a lot of people think can make some noise in Oklahoma. I know Bart is not necessarily on that train yet, but I think there's a lot of people, and we're scouring the digital drive to try to find a couple of Oklahoma folks to talk to later in the week. But that's an Oklahoma team that a lot of people think can be much improved under Brent Venables and can be a thorn in the side of a lot of people in the SEC. And I don't think it's crazy to say that 0-1 is more likely. I'm not going to say it's probable, but I think it's more likely than a lot of people in Auburn want to say.
You play to win the game. Thank you, Herm Edwards.
Thank you, Herm Edwards. Yeah.
That's exactly what it's all about for Hugh Freeze and the Auburn Tigers. Look, when it comes down to it, that's the same for everybody. How about Kirby Smart and his Georgia Bulldogs? They want to get back to the championship caliber and win another national title, bring it back to Athens. We'll talk about the Dogs when we come back after a quick timeout as you listen to the Press Box on great radio stations around the Southeast, online, PressBoxRadio.com, and check out the video feed now live at Mike Grace Live on Facebook. Back after a quick timeout. Their SEC football media days continue today. Day number 2. Mike Grace along with Mike Mote in our studios down in Atlanta, downtown Atlanta, is our friend Colin Lacy. We'll get to him in a matter of moments to talk some Georgia Bulldogs. So stand by for that. Great to have you with us on any of our 20 affiliate partners all across the country, 5 southeastern states, including our friends in southeast Georgia who listen on the super stations, Macon, Pinehurst, and Perry, Blackshear, Waycross, Brunswick, Savannah, and Warner Robins. Going to talk about your Georgia Bulldogs in a little bit as we throw it back to Colin Lacy at the College Football Hall of Fame.
Back from SEC Media Day with Rusty Mansell, the co-owner and publisher for Dogs HQ. You're also heavily involved with high school recruiting, especially here in the state of Georgia, and that's where I want to start. With as much as everybody talks about what college athletics has turned into,
Yep.
How much have you seen it change on the high school recruiting side of things?
Well, talking about NIL.
Yeah.
I'm involved with Georgia High School in some fashion or form, so kind of involved in some of the private communications. And I think everybody got really paranoid, thinking, "Oh my gosh, NIL is going to change high school sports, and all these kids going to be doing this." It hasn't really changed. Like, kids aren't making hundreds of thousands of dollars. Regions Bank's not sponsoring a tight end from Rome High School. You know what I mean? There's some kids that had some deals that I would say were pretty large, some trading cards and stuff like that, and that's what NIL is supposed to be.
Yeah.
I don't think it's gotten too crazy as far as that side of it. I'm certainly, if I have a kid at Southeast Bullock that has some marketability and somebody's want to give him a couple $100 a month or $1,000 a month, I love that. I don't think it's really changed. I think everybody got really worried. Now, will it start trickling down into high school more now through colleges? I hope not. We just don't need that type of kind of decisions by young people. But if you can go out and make, as a kid at Cass, Bear McWhorter, who was on a billboard in Cartersville on I-75, he took a lot of his money that he made from that and donated to charity. So that's good stuff there too.
What would you say, as far as the impact goes? We just talked about NIL. Would you say, obviously, the transfer portal when it comes to high school, that was a bigger impact?
Yes.
Probably this
that
NIL
was a
stuff.
bigger
I know
impact.
that was a huge issue.
Yeah,
that we kind of ran into.
That's a big deal. When I have to have that conversation with, I get high school coaches all the time going, "Hey, can you speak to our parents? Because we're telling them this and they're not believing us."
Mm-hmm.
It certainly is something that you deal with, and it's unfortunate. And, I understand some of the colleges I talk to. I'm like, "Hey, man, y'all going to recruit high school?" And he's like, "Rusty, if I sign a kid, I got to wait 2 years, I might get fired."
Yep.
When I can go out and sign a kid that has tape from college, I know more about that kid than I do this high school kid that the guy in front of him is not a college athlete. So I kind of get both sides of it. I hate that part of it. It certainly affects a lot of schools and a lot of high schools, and it's taken away a lot of opportunities. I think there's a different path. I had to, I don't really try to make decisions for people, but if I know them and they ask me, I'm like, look, there's nothing wrong with going to a lower level school and getting some tape and then go, the path now is this.
Yep.
Or you can obviously, if you go to Georgia and you can't play, you can come down and you still can maintain all your goals. That's one of the things that I think everybody's had to adjust to. But I certainly know, someone like you that was involved in heavily recruiting for your school, a lot of people around the state that handles recruiting, I know they're dealing with those issues. And there's a lot of kids that aren't playing college football, unfortunately, because of the transfer portal.
Yep.
Dive into this 2025 Georgia club, and obviously the biggest thing that everybody's going to be talking about these next couple of days is what quarterback looks like. Gunnar Stockton coming in, taking over as QB1 for Kirby Smart. You've seen him for a long time, like we talked about, heavily involved with high school recruiting in the state of Georgia. You've seen him for a long time. You've seen him succeed for a long time. Tell everybody that hasn't seen him what they're getting at quarterback for Georgia.
Can I say ass?
Sure.
He's a tough ass kid.
Fine.
And if y'all get in trouble, I'm sorry. Put that
There's
on
probably
me.
been worse that was
He's
said this morning. on the radio.
He's a tough joker. I think he's wired right. I think he has a lot of respect. Quarterback position, to me, I've said this a lot of times. It's the one position in sports where the 10 other people in the huddle have to believe in you. It's not in baseball, you can do the ground balls and all that kind of stuff. This guy touches the ball every single play. He's making the decision for 10 other people every time. I think Gunner's got that. I'm not going to beat around the bush and say that there's not questions about him. You start talking about, you look at week 3, he's got to go to Knoxville and be the guy. And you'll walk into Neyland Stadium at 3:30, and they hadn't beat Georgia in a while. They're going to be ready for Gunner to get there. So we're all going to find out together how he acts in there. But if you look at Gunner skill set wise, he's bigger than Stetson Bennett. He's thicker. You know what I mean? So he's not. I think first thing people see in him is like, damn, he's legit 6 foot, probably 6'1.5". He's got a great arm. He can hurt you with his legs. I think he's got great deep ball accuracy. The one thing that kind of worries me just a little bit is if you watch him in the spring game and you watch him against Notre Dame, I think he had 3 batted balls in the spring game. I think he had 2 batted balls against Notre Dame. And you guys, and you especially know being around coaching, you get batted balls and nothing good comes from that. So I don't know. I just don't know if it was kind of a bad run, because I do know that he is taller than Stetson, and Stetson never worried me about getting batted balls. So I would imagine that's going to be an emphasis on something. But you know that teams watch tape, and they're going to know to get their hands up on him. Is it as a release point, that type of thing? I don't know. But in between the tackles, he's had some balls batted, and some of those things right there, some of those things you just you worry about balls in the air, stuff like that.
So one thing, obviously, you talk about comparing him a little bit to Stetson as far as, he's a little bit bigger in stature and that kind of stuff. And we actually were talking about it this morning, and that was kind of my comparison, was that he reminded me of a Stetson Bennett with just the grit and the grind, and just
like
he's just
that.
a gamer.
Yep.
But one thing that we had talked about this morning that, it always worried me with Stetson, but he always came through in the long run, was taking those risks every now and then. The rolling out to the right,
window.
throwing across your body back to the other side of the field. And, Stetson was able to sometimes made some mistakes and threw some interceptions, but also made some really big plays as well. Is that something that we're probably going to see from Gunner, just with him being young and still kind of developing as well as a quarterback?
Yeah, I think Gunner's going to take some chances, and I think Stetson used to take chances. I think the most underrated thing, and you kind of touched on it there, the thing with Stetson is I don't know that I've ever seen at Georgia specifically a quarterback that was better in the fourth quarter every time. Like if the game was on the line, Stetson Bennett, you were going to have to outscore Georgia. Ohio State almost did, but they didn't stop him in the second half. You look at the Alabama game when Alabama and Indianapolis comes back to take the lead on that fumble. I think Stetson Bennett was like 9 for 9 with 2 touchdowns in that fourth quarter, and he got better as the game went on. We don't know that about Gunner, but you start talking about the moxie, you start talking about the grit. He's going to throw some balls in tight windows. Stetson did that at times too. I think that Gunner can hurt you with his legs too, but those are things we're going to find out. What's the decision and what's going to happen when they're down 14 in the fourth quarter, because he's never faced that.
Yep.
Talk about the mentality of this team, especially under Kirby Smart. We've talked a lot about it, of this team believes a lot more than teams across the country, because you've seen the elevation of this program back to where a lot of Georgia fans expect to be, competing for a national championship every year. Talk about that mentality around this team, because it hasn't necessarily always been there for Georgia.
I think it's so cliche to say this, but Kirby practices so hard that games are easier. I think there's so much pressure on you. And I think Kirby Smart on the mic probably intimidates you more than the student section in Alabama. You know what I mean? I remember interviewing Dalen Everett. I don't know if you guys get him tomorrow. He told me the story. He said his freshman year, Kirby got on him so bad on the mic, he didn't realize he was getting on to him. He said, when I got back to the end of the group, and the guy said, "Hey, he's talking to you." He's like, "He was talking to me?" And they're like, "Yeah, dude, he was ripping you." So I think the pressure and the accountability. They do the bloody Tuesdays and all that. But the amount Georgia tries to put you in game type situations, and I know you hear that coaching type. We want practice to be just like game. I can promise you, at Georgia, practice is just like a game. So when you get into those situations, you don't really panic as much.
Well, that's something that you touch on, and that I remember hearing a lot of players say in interviews, especially when they're preparing for the NFL draft and stuff like that, is it got to where when they were in the games, they were not nearly as tired as the rest of the team, because, like you said, practice was harder than the games. And so it really helped them in the long run, especially when you get into that fourth quarter and you're down 7 or you're down 14, and you got to kind of step it up a little bit and take the lead and try to win the game.
You think about how many times Georgia's beaten teams in the second half over the last 3 or 4 years. That is strength. That is conditioning.
Yep.
That is conditioning. Can you think when you're tired? I had a coach, he's no longer there, but I think it was maybe 2019 or 2020. I think it was 2019. Georgia went and played at South Carolina. It was the game DeAndre Baker had that pick 6 against Debo Samuel.
Yep.
The game at halftime was very close, or it was like, Georgia had a 2-point lead, something crazy. Well, that coach told me that South Carolina went in the locker room. He said, we were we were exhausted, dead tired. Georgia comes out in the second half. They go 4 drives, 4 touchdowns. They were ready to play. and they were in much better shape. That's not a Shane Beamer team. That was a different team.
Mm-hmm.
So you look at those teams, and Georgia was in much better shape. How'd you do that? You were outworking people in the summer because that was the second game of the year. You were outworking teams in the summer. They were in much better shape. They go 4-4 to open up that second half.
So what would you say going into, obviously finishing up the season last year, coming up just short against Notre Dame, and looking ahead through the spring and this offseason, what would you say is probably the biggest question mark coming into this season for the Georgia squad?
Inexperience. I mean, I think they got 8 returning starters, 9 returning starters. Everyone look at it, and it's inexperience. And I think people get a little bit kind of panicked about that. I'm excited because you get a lot of guys that are just going to start for the first time. They're highly recruited players, and you get a chance to see these guys. Just because they weren't starting didn't mean they weren't really good players. They had guys in front of them. So I think inexperience is something that concerns you, but also should excite you. There's also some new blood in the. I mean, you look at all those guys, and a lot of those guys that left at least won one national championship. They won a couple SEC championships, and you sit there and you grind for like 4 years, and you're like, man, I'm ready to go to the NFL. You know what I mean? And that's not to say they quit on last year, but this particular group, I don't think any of them, maybe 1 or 2 of them on paper, have ever won a national championship on that freshman team. This group of guys, this is their legacy, their team, and I think you're going to see some kind of renewed energy with some younger guys getting a chance for Georgia fans to see them.
Is there a certain position group that you would say that you're kind of interested to see how they perform compared to last year? I feel like the offensive line at the offensive line wasn't a normal offensive line that we've seen in years past, and so I'm kind of interested to see how they kind of mold and mesh together. Obviously, I'm excited about seeing the wide receiver group with having a lot of new guys coming in, and then also, they did a really good job of recruiting and getting some younger defensive linemen in that I think are going to have to make an impact right away.
Elijah Griffin's a kid I think we all agree he's got to play.
Yes.
And this is a guy that's, if he wasn't number 1, maybe number 2, at least number 3 overall player in the country last year. He's 305 pounds. He just ran a 4.75 40 in testing, which is super freaky.
Mm-hmm.
And
this is our neck of the woods, Savannah.
Yeah, so this guy's got to play. I think he's going to play. I think the offensive line is a group that's got the question marks around it. But you got to get guys. You take Monroe Freeland, who was, one of the top 2 offensive linemen in America coming out of high school out of Charleston, South Carolina. Had a bad game against Notre Dame. But what people didn't realize is his shoulder was shot. Like, he had surgery 2 days later. He played Notre Dame, didn't play great. He had to have surgery just 2 days later. Ernest Green was unhealthy for most of the year, wound up, he had to come out of the Ole Miss game because he was banged up.
Yep.
So you look at these guys, and can they play tackle? Can they're healthy? Are they back? The pieces are there. It's just how you play as a unit. I think, look, man, I know people have opinions of his dad, but I'm telling you right now, Drew Bobo is a freaking NFL player. I mean, this guy is a damn baller. Everybody I talk to, how athletic he is. They lost Jared Wilson, who was a 4th round draft pick. They're not losing an ounce with Drew Bobo. This guy's an unbelievable center, very smart, team leader off the field, coach's kid, what you would expect.
Yep.
But I think people are going to realize when Drew Bobo's there how good they're going to be up front. He's going to help things. And I heard Jason Kelsey talking about playing center, and he was like, nowadays you have to be able to pull. Not only do you have to get to the second level, you have to make the calls, but you have to be able to pull and get out in front of people. And I think Drew Bobo is going to be a guy there who's going to bring some physicality. Michael Morris, kid out of Southeast Georgia from Camden County. Look at Jamal Merriweather, kid out of Brunswick, down there. What can he do? Where is he at? You look at Daniel Calhoun. I'm going to tell you the guy that, you may not hear like right now, but come time like Florida, which I feel like is kind of the midway point, like Juan Gaston, the freshman out of Westlake. This guy's 6'7.5", he's 350 pounds. He's talking about a damn dancing bear now. And this guy is going to play this year. I'm telling you right now, whoever's in front of him has got their work cut out for him because he could play right tackle, he could play right guard, he could play left guard. I mean, this guy is special, and I think he's going to play as a freshman.
Fired up to get it going on the college side at least in a little over a month. I know your stuff gets wired up a lot faster than that, but Rusty, appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, man, appreciate y'all having me.
Again, Rusty Mansell, co-owner and publisher for Dogs HQ, also a lot with the Georgia high school recruiting side of things.
And you can find him on social media at Rusty Mansell, MANSELL _. Of course, Dogs HQ online, Dogs, DAWGS HQ, and online, same thing, dogshq.com, regular online feature, Rusty's Ramblings. And here's the thing that I wonder, fellas, and Colin, since you guys talked to him, I'll address this to you and Brent first. I think everybody all the attention's on Texas this year.
Yeah.
Sarkeesian and Arch and la-di-da-di-da. They're the pretty girl in the room right now. And nobody's really looking. I won't say nobody's looking at Georgia, but I would guess that Kirby Smart is tickled to have everybody else talking about the Texas Longhorns and not his team. That's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think part of it too is kind of what we talked about with Rusty in the sense that they have made it to where Georgia being the top 2, 3, 4, whatever you want to be, that upper echelon of the SEC, that's just kind of a given every year. And I think it's the mentality change around that team that everybody expects Georgia to be in that top 3, and so when they are, nobody's really talking about it, and then they're trying to figure out who the other 2 are going to be.
Yeah, and that's what I found kind of interesting, and I think it may have been Rusty or somebody else that we were talking to, but yesterday about that we think that Kirby is really embracing this kind of, I won't say they're an underdog role because they're not nearly an underdog what you would expect, but not being in the limelight as much, being like a defending national champion or something like that. And so the one thing that I find interesting and that I think he's enjoying some is, a couple weeks ago, I think it was when they were down in Destin or whatever, that Paul Feinbaum had made the comment on his show about Gunnar Stockton and that Georgia was not going to be able to win with Gunnar Stockton and that kind of stuff. And he had him on a show, and all Kirby said was, "Message was received by Gunnar." That's all he said. And so I think it's just kind of interesting, and I think that kind of plays into Kirby's hands a little bit. Nick Saban used to always talk about the rat poison, right,
Yep.
of the media and hyping it up. And so I think that Georgia kind of feels like they've got something to prove because in the end, their goal is to win a national championship every single year. And they've kind of put themselves on that pedestal, and they have every right, I feel like, to have that as their goal. And so when they don't do that, they did not achieve their goal. Yes, they won the SEC championship last year in a big game against Texas. And, being able to beat Texas 2 times in one season is a huge feat as well. But they still didn't get their goal accomplished. And so I think that they've got a little chip on their shoulders. And I agree that I think that them being a little bit underrated and being kind of behind the scenes compared to a Texas with the Arch Manning coming in. And I really think that that's going to be kind of a motivation too with Gunnar is, yes, he's this new quarterback coming in, but so is Arch Manning. But a lot of people are talking about Arch Manning, and they're not really talking about Gunnar that much. And so I think that'll kind of be a little chip on his shoulder as well.
Yeah, well, he was a highly regarded quarterback, and this is his team now. And may I remind everybody, as you just said, Georgia went 2-0 against the most beautiful woman in the room, so to speak, in Texas, right? Well, let me also say this: with or without Gunner, if it was Carson Beck, Georgia's not winning or losing with their quarterback. They didn't win last year because of the guys around the quarterback. They have to improve in the other areas. Gunnar Stockton reminds me a lot of the Stetson Bennett types. Okay, you don't think I can play quarterback? Fine, I'll go prove you wrong.
Yep.
And I think Coach Smart is just fine with that. Like you guys said, I think that's something that's really important to him. You get really started in week 3. The first 2 you're going to win, you would think, regardless of who's playing the quarterback position and how long. After that, it's Tennessee on the road, and they themselves have quarterback issues. Georgia really doesn't get a big, huge test in my mind until the 27th of September when Alabama's in town. And then you get a little bit of a lull, and then you get Auburn, and then you get Texas later, you get Florida and Jacksonville. I mean, those are tough games, but they're down the road a ways. Maybe by then, Stockton's comfortable and everybody's playing the way they should. But I think this is perfect positioning for Kirby Smart's Georgia Bulldogs to make a run this year.
Remember, they beat Texas twice last year. Yes, in the SEC championship game, but also on the road in Austin.
Beat them handily in Austin, man.
They did. Now the
Wasn't
Longhorns
close.
have to come to Athens, as do the 2 teams that Georgia lost to last year in the regular season.
Ole Miss.
Alabama and Ole Miss, both of them come to Athens this year.
Yep.
Should make for an interesting 2025 for head coach Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs. We owe you a timeout still, just halfway through this Tuesday edition of the Press Box. We got you coming up with more from day 2 of SEC Football Media Days with Colin and Brent, Mike Mote, and Mike Grace, and you on great stations around the Southeast, online, PressBoxRadio.com, and YouTube.com/PressBoxRadio.
box. Everything will be all right.
I might get a pickled egg. And I might have some Miracle Whip. Hot Miracle Whip.
We working all the time. Learned a whole new vernacular from this. Every story
On this show, that's it. Very easy.
welcome to the press box. Everything will be all right.
Day 2 of SEC Football Media Days, live from the College Football Hall of Fame, Atlanta, Georgia, where our friend Colin, Lacy, and Brent Osborne hanging out, talking to the guys all week long. We've got some more goodies we'll bring you later in the day. Mike Mote in his Douglasville, Georgia studios. Yours truly on the other side of the Atlanta Metro. Mike Grace, glad to have you with us on great stations around the Southeast, including our friends in Auburn, Alabama, who listen on WAUD AM 1230. Your head coach, Hugh Freeze, a part of the group today. Georgia and Auburn, along with Tennessee and Texas at the podium as day 2 of the SEC Football Media Days continue. Back with Mike and Colin and Brent. And guys, as we talk about it, I want to talk about Ole Miss a little bit. We've got Caden Lee, a wide receiver, junior, who comes back for another year after, I think, being the number 2 receiver in that Ole Miss offense a year ago. You guys had a chance to hook up and talk with him yesterday. We'll get to that in a little bit, Colin. But I want to first talk about his head coach in Lane Kiffin. What we saw at the podium yesterday was not your typical Lane Kiffin. We've seen this a little bit the last couple of years with Lane, and it's interesting, especially in the past year, he has lost not only his dad but his mom as well. One of those expected, one of those a little more sudden, and he talks about how that's impacted him and how the city of Oxford has helped him through this time.
I just have so much appreciation. I'm not saying this coming to head coach. I don't give you coach speak. The people of Oxford, and then when you lose your parents and you see how they are and how they help take care of them towards the end, or how much they really cared about them, it opened my eyes to a totally different way. It's basically, I went to Oxford, had this view. Then I got kids there, so then I had a different view as a parent there, and how awesome a community is to raise your kids in and to have them go to college and high school around these families and we take care of everybody. Then you see your parents at the end and lose your parents, one kind of expected, one unexpected, and to see how the community is around that. I owe so much to Oxford and the people there. It's just been awesome.
You know, early in his career, he was pretty much known, Lane Kiffin, as a carpetbagger. I mean, he was going to pack up and move wherever the big money was, wherever the big spotlight was, okay? Guys, I'm beginning to wonder, Mike Mote, could Lane Kiffin retire as the Ole Miss head coach in another, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years? How long can he be there?
I don't know. You'd have to give me his age, but it really seems like he's grown up as a man a little bit, sort of like what Steve Sarkisian has done over the last maybe 10 years of his life. If you think about some of the stuff he had been through before he got another opportunity, first at Alabama as working with Nick Saban, and then the opportunity he got at Texas. I think Lane Kiffin's grown up some, and dealing with some life experiences, and that will change you. I don't care if you're a head football coach or me.
Yeah,
It just changes you, and I think you kind of have a new perspective. So I think that's part of it. But I think the idea of him going to every time a coaching job was open, his name was mentioned for it. I mean, it was a little less last year, though, quite honestly. And I think, guys, and I don't know how you guys feel at media days. You were in the room with it, but it just seems to me, based on the comments I've heard and things that he has said, that maybe he's just a different person because of the things he's gone through, not necessarily in terms of football and success and disappointments over the last couple of years, because he's had a little bit of both, but just as a man, just as dealing with things that we all going to deal with from time to time, and how hard those things are. And it changes you, makes you either a better person or a bitter person. And I think it's worked to the positive for Lane Kiffin.
No, and I think part of it too of what he was talking about of you're going through so much and the community being around you for that. And so you're almost building a second family for it. And Brent, I know you and I both having 2 kids. We got to give a shout out to Carson, by the way.
Yeah, always.
But being able to have your kids in a place, you become a parent in a place. The community rallies around you in that. Then you lose both of your parents in the last couple of years for him. part of that community, and I know Oxford is a big part of the kind of old Southern town feel. Of everybody kind of rallying around you, whether you're the head coach or not. But I imagine it also helps when you're the head coach and you've been winning football games. But I think the on the field meshes with the off the field, and I think it's turned into a perfect storm for Lane Kiffin, and I think it was probably good for and I'm not trying to go psychological and all of this stuff, but I think it was probably good for Lane Kiffin to get into a situation like that and then realize and feel it, because there's a lot of times where you get into, because there's a lot of towns like that and a lot of communities like that, especially around the SEC, but there's also a lot of coaches that experience things like that and don't necessarily, I don't want to say take advantage of it, because that kind of has a bad connotation to it, but
Mm.
you don't embrace the community that's embracing you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was about to say. I mean, one thing that how I've kind of always looked at Lane is, um, you know, he's a player's coach, and you're going to hear us talk to Caden Lee in a little bit about that and what kind of coach he is. And I still think that he's got a little bit of Lane Kiffin in him that we kind of all know, and we see a little bit here and there. But the other thing I've kind of noticed is, whenever he was on Twitter and trolling all the time, and it was like, okay, how much football time is he actually spending versus just being on Twitter or doing that kind of stuff? And I think that when he was a coordinator, an offensive coordinator, wherever it was, that you can kind of get away with doing some of that stuff. Whereas the head coach, you're kind of in a different light a little bit. And one thing that I've kind of noticed over these last couple of years is, yes, he's still a guy, and he's still good buddies with Kirby and Hugh Freeze and Dabo and the rest of those guys, that they're all good friends and they like to joke around and stuff. But I think he also started to realize too is that as a head coach of a big program like Ole Miss, that you also, there's times that you can be funny, but there's also times that you need to be very, very serious if you want to be a successful program. And I think that he has kind of seen that from his friends like a Kirby, that that kind of shows him the way a little bit. And I know that him and Kirby are totally different coaches when it comes to how they approach the program, but I do think that that kind of has helped him, like we said, grow up a little bit in a sense. And I think that's kind of helped evolve Ole Miss and having the success that they're having as well. Is not that he doesn't like to have fun and that he's not a player's coach, because he definitely is, but I think that he also has done a really good job of kind of being able to grasp and get those players to really believe in him.
For what it's worth, he turned 50 back in May. So that is a life.
Thanks. I'm older
chapter,
than Lane
absolutely.
Kiffin. That's
Yes,
not
yes,
right.
absolutely.
Gosh.
And again, I think the real impact, and you talked about this yesterday, when you lose both of your parents and you stop and think for a moment, okay,
Mm.
that leaves me. That leaves me and my siblings as the patriarchs and matriarchs of this family now, and it's
Yeah.
something that I'm my brothers, and I've got two older brothers, but we've suffered the same thing in recent years, and it really is it's just a change. So it's a different Lane Kiffin. We know this though; he's still just as good as an offensive minded coach. He's been fantastic. Look, he'll have to break in a new quarterback in Austin Simmons this year. We only got glimpses of him last year. What we saw was great. But one of the best things he's got going for him this year is one of his key targets, Caden Lee, 5'11", 175-pound junior, a wide receiver who is a local product. He prepped at Kennesaw Mountain High School, just a ways up I-75 from Atlanta. And again, our Colin, Lacy, and Brent Osborne had a chance to catch up with Ole Miss wide receiver Caden Lee yesterday at SEC Football Media Days from the College Football Hall of Fame.
SEC Media Day catching up with part of the Ole Miss Rebels and your wide receiver and Caden Lee. Appreciate you joining us, bud.
I appreciate you guys for having me. You guys for having me.
What's this like? What is getting to experience an SEC Media Day? And oh, by the way, far from home.
I know I'm about 35 minutes from my house, so I might just pop home after this. But no, it's been amazing so far. I've seen it all the way growing up since I was in high school, so it's a privilege to be able to be here.
You look at what Ole Miss was last season, a really spectacular year. What is the biggest takeaway that you have from last year, being a sophomore, but being heavily involved in that offense?
Last year I was kind of just figuring out the player that I was on the field, and now I feel like I have a really good understanding of what I can do, the things that I can improve on, and I'm just gonna take the mental notes into next season.
So, kind of touching on that a little bit, what was something that after getting a lot of playing time and playing and making some big some big catches and playing a big role in your games last year. What were some things that you kind of felt like you needed to improve on going into the spring and this offseason?
Yeah, this past year I feel like I was a little bit smaller, so I picked up some weight. I've gained about 15 pounds now, so I feel like that's really a big improvement for myself. And I just feel like focusing on yards after the catch is a big thing for me. So I'm looking forward to that this upcoming year.
The biggest thing that everybody's talking about around this Ole Miss team is Jackson Dart finishing up at Ole Miss. Now you're moving to Austin Simmons. What's the biggest part of what Austin Simmons brings that nobody knows about?
Well, I feel like it's something that everybody should know about, which is his smartness. I don't know if you guys know this, but he's 19 years old and he just graduated college. So that's
impressive.
That man, he's smart.
Yeah, that's very, very impressive.
Mhm.
So, what is something that that you were really looking forward to, I guess, this season, and kind of seeing what you guys can do as a team? Try to get over the hurdles of some of the things that maybe held you guys back just a little bit. So, what's something that you guys are kind of looking forward to and seeing how you guys respond this next season?
For us, we brought in a lot of new guys, so really just building that bond with each other and creating new relationships. And I feel like just being able to, I make a play, you make a play, pick the other side of the ball up is real big for us this upcoming year.
Talk about the mentality of this team, and everybody says the cliche of everybody follows what their head coach does. Lane Kiffin has obviously been a big part of what Ole Miss has been the last couple of years. What is it that this team really gleans from Lane Kiffin and what he's able to bring to this team?
He's big on just going 1-0 every day. I mean, everybody wants to be like, oh yeah, let's make an SEC championship, let's win a national championship, but you can't do that unless you go 1-0. You're getting better every day. If you lose game one, that doesn't set you up, so you got to go 1-0 every game and every day.
All right, so I have to ask. So obviously we see all the kind of the back and forth on Twitter, and Coach Kiffin likes to troll people as well and kind of give it back to him. So what's it like kind of having him as a head coach? Does he kind of play around with you guys, but he's also got the respect of the team as well to kind of lead by example as well?
Yeah, I mean, Coach Kiffin, he's a player's coach.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to have fun a lot of the time, but get work done at the same time, that's school you need to go to. I mean, before practice, some days we'll have coaches doing one-on-ones and 7-on-7. The players are out there laughing, throwing water bottles on them, and coaches are trying to do drills. So it's amazing.
We've talked about the elevation of Ole Miss the last couple of years under Lane Kiffin and what that program has become. What is that next step for you guys? What is next for Ole Miss and what the kind of trajectory is?
The trajectory of Ole Miss is just, I feel like it's trending upward. It has been for a couple years now. We plan to just keep that going.
Is there something that you may feel in particular as a team that you guys need to maybe improve on or improve on from last year to kind of take that next step? And I know there were multiple conversations about you guys in the college football playoffs for next year or for this past year. Is there something or a hurdle maybe you guys got to get past that you feel like would kind of put you guys in a better spot in the driver's seat is controlling that destiny?
I feel like we're just gonna try to control our own destiny, like you said, and with a bunch of new guys that we brought in, our biggest thing that we're trying to focus on right now is just creating team chemistry, bonding, getting to know one another, getting to get on the same page mentally with one another, just to be able to dominate on the field.
Talk about that with receiver room, and we talked about you being a big part of it last year. You lose a couple of guys out of that room that made key parts of that receiver room a year ago. Who were the guys that looked to take those steps?
We have a very talented receiver room now. We've brought in Deshaun Stribling, Trey Wallace from Penn State, Deuce Alexander, Caleb Odom, more guys, Trey, T-Ray, that's my guy. So I feel like as a receiver room, we haven't left off. I feel like we're going to be the exact same room, even better maybe.
And talking about Caleb Odom, obviously young player coming in, big player in stature as well. What kind of impact do you think he's going to be able to make kind of right off the bat with being such a big player in that kind of tight end wide receiver role?
Yeah, I mean he's versatile. You can put him at tight end. You can put him outside as an outside receiver. I mean, he's got some receiver reps at the slot as well. So I feel like he can do it all, it makes it hard for a defense to game plan. So I feel like that's big.
All right, I know we're starting off SEC Media Days. We've got the next 4 days going through all 16 teams, but you're setting the bar high as far as the drip, you got the bracelet, the shoes.
I appreciate that.
Where did all of this get put together? Is this a you creation?
This is definitely a me creation. I am very big into the fashion, so that's me.
You got the pink bow tie. That bow tie is
Feathers.
Point.
All right. That's what
Oh,
Colin even said
yes.
before you even came over to our table. He goes, I think Caden, he was like, I saw him walk by, and I
Uh-huh.
think Caden may have already won the shoe game, and it's the very first day.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So you got the silver sparkling shoes.
hmm
Where do these come from?
So these right here, the Cactus Plant Flea Market Platinum. Very hard to find.
That's amazing.
Very hard to find.
Going into
What about Coach Kiffin, real quick? I got to ask.
hmm
Has he got some good drip on today?
Let me think. I feel like he's a step below me,
Okay, step
but
below,
he's up there.
Course,
But
yeah.
he's definitely up there.
all right, who's the guy, even around the league or in the team, who, if they go all out,
Mm.
has the best dress?
Myself.
Okay, all right.
Myself.
I figured.
Yeah, fair enough.
Going into 2025, what are, and I'm not going to go with the traditional that you've gotten asked 1,000 times today of what's the goals for this team, but what's the biggest thing that you personally want to accomplish and want to see in 2025?
You know, I just really want to see us just play as a team for a 4-quarter game. I don't just want to just see us just dominate in the first quarter and then slack off in the third quarter. I want to see us play complete football games from the first quarter to the fourth quarter, and I feel like if we do that, it'll be hard to beat us.
Was there a certain game last year, obviously, with your role kind of being getting bigger? Was there a certain game last year from last year's season that was your favorite or your most memorable so far?
It definitely has to be the Georgia game, just because the storming of the field,
Yep.
tearing the goalpost down, and carrying it to the square. It was just that game was awesome.
Talking about that atmosphere at Vaught Hemingway Stadium, and I
Mhm.
think it's one that gets overlooked a lot around the SEC, but being there a couple of times over the last few years with Westwood One, it's been fun to see that environment. Talk about what it's like being on the field, being a part of a field storm,
Mhm.
being a part of all that goes around Ole Miss football.
Yeah, we have a terrific fan base. Our fans are amazing. They do a great job. They pack the vault every game. So they're always going to bring the energy. And as a player being on the field, seeing that stadium packed, it's awesome.
Caden, appreciate you joining us. Good luck this season.
Mhm.
Wish all the best to you and the Ole Miss Rebels, and appreciate you joining us.
Thank you
buddy.
guys so much. Have a good day.
Once again, Caden Lee, the Ole Miss Rebels junior wide receiver.
Is there anything more Ole Miss than a pink bow tie and bedazzled shoes?
Pink feather bow tie.
Now, and this comes
feathers
this
in the middle of it.
mind you, this comes from a Mississippi State fan, but whose older brother is an Ole Miss grad and started taking me to Ole Miss football games. I was an Ole Miss fan. I was an Ole Miss fan before I was a State fan, only because my brother took me to games. I saw Archie Manning play for Ole Miss back in '69 and '70, thanks to my big brother.
Can we
And
revisit that tomorrow whenever Bart Heitch is on?
no, please don't. No, don't tell Bart.
I think that'd be fantastic.
Don't tell Bart, please.
Yeah.
He already accuses me of having 17 teams. And look, I've got 2 teams. Okay, I've got Mississippi State. They are my team, and then Auburn's second because I've got an Auburn dad, Auburn brother, Auburn daughter, etc. So I've got connections to Auburn.
You got invested interest in that.
State's my team. I was an Ole Miss fan, but I'm not anymore. I changed. And
I thought you joined South Carolina yesterday after the DQ Smith.
well, I did. Yeah, maybe so. Maybe I could add South Carolina to that list now as well. I'm just a fan of the SEC, boys and girls. How about that? Our thanks again to Caden Lee, the wide receiver for Ole Miss, last year's number 2 receiver. He was number 2 with 57 receptions for 874 yards, couple of touchdowns, and set to be a key target for Rebels' first-year starting quarterback, Austin Simmons, coming up in 2025. All right, we're just getting rolling with hour number 2 of the press box. So with our guys, Colin, Lacy, and Brent Osborne on site. Digital Drive, second floor of the College Football Hall of Fame, site of SEC Football Media Days. It's day 2, just getting things underway with Georgia's Kirby Smart at the podium. We'll check on that and much more as we come to you on great radio stations around the Southeast, online 24/7 at PressBoxRadio.com, and streaming live video at YouTube.com/PressBoxRadio. Yes, just watch with one eye, probably. 2 eyes might burn your retinas there. Either way, we'll take a quick time out and come back. And, there was an all-star home run derby last night. We might touch on that when we come back inside the press box.
online at PressBoxRadio.com and to great radio stations throughout the Southeast. This is the Press Box.
And now, either thanks to Colin Lacy or to Colin Lacy's blame,
Because of him, yeah.
the video is out there as well. Yes, we're live streaming from the studio from SEC Football Media Days. Find it youtube.com/PressBoxRadio is where you'll find us there. And the greatest part about it is that we will, if you miss any of the show, we've got all the interviews archived up there, plus a couple extras that the guys have collected during the course of the day. Today, later in the day, I think you guys are scheduled to visit with Laura Rutledge of ESPN and the SEC Network, who does such a fantastic job. I got to be honest with you. I mean, most Saturday mornings, I will watch College Game Day's first hour, but I'm typically at when hour 2 starts, I'm over at SEC Nation, man. I love that SEC Nation crew, really do.
And the thing I love about Laura is her roots are in college football. I actually first met Laura Rutledge down in Mobile when Georgia Southern was playing in their first bowl game with the GoDaddy Bowl.
Yeah.
And so got to hang out and meet her there. But she's able to bounce between college football and NFL, and she's one of the few that can do it seamlessly.
Incredibly. Yes. Incredibly.
Takes some preparation and some talent to do it, but knowing your subject matter really important, and she knows it. And she knows it, does a great job. Saw her yesterday, her and I believe it was Feinbaum on there, along with one of the players was on there.
Jordan Rogers was with her at one point.
Yeah.
Greg
really good
McElroy.
coverage. Yeah. Mike McElroy as well.
Yep.
So, I mean, but the coverage was excellent yesterday morning as they broke down what old Greg Sankey had to say and all that sort of stuff. So pretty good stuff.
Well, for my Braves and baseball fans, let me just take care of this. This is our regular odds and ends segment where it can be a little bit of everything. So we'll throw the All-Star Home Run Derby in there. Although, did any of the four of us watch any of this? I'll be honest, I watched the first round. But after Matt Olson was eliminated, I was done.
I watched the last 2 batters of the first round, and once Matt Olson I thought was only going to hit like 3.
Yeah,
I was like, I'm pretty done with this.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Yeah,
I'm one of these. Call me Scrooge. I hate home run derby. I have not watched a pitch of it in the last 2 or 3 years, and I kept that tradition last night. I'm not a big fan of it. Just got to be honest.
Yeah.
I think people who sit in the stands for that pay that exorbitant amount of money to sit there and watch people swing and hit home runs.
Yeah.
What I'm interested in, guys, is who recovers from the home run derby, because
Exactly.
a lot of times guys coming off of that into the next half of this, after the All-Star break, they struggle a little bit.
They do. For what it's worth, history made as the Mariners catcher, Cal Raleigh, became the first catcher to win. He outlasted Ray Slugger Jr. Caminero. In addition to being the first catcher to ever capture the home run derby crown, he's also the first switch hitter to win the home run derby outright. And I don't know. Here's the thing that bothers me. And I was texting back and forth with my brother who was watching it, and the ESPN crew.
That was brutal.
It was really bad.
Really bad. Yeah.
And it's just funny because my wife asked, hey, it was 8 o'clock. She said, hey, home run derby starting now, right? I said, look, baby, they're going to do 20 minutes of crap before they actually get around to the home run derby. I flipped over at 8:21 as the first cat, James Wood, the 6'7" Washington National kid, was stepping into the batter's box.
Yeah.
21 minutes of junk before they finally got around to the actual home run derby.
Yeah,
so,
thankfully, Fox will start their coverage at 7 Eastern tonight, and I think we actually get a first pitch before 8.
wow, that would be swell.
It would be nice. I mean, why drag? I like watching the opening ceremonies of the All-Star game. I always have, just to see the reaction of the fans when fans are or players are introduced. I think that's kind of cool. But after that, it's just it's going to be a 2-1 or 3-2 game, and But I think it's really cool that Paul Skeens is starting for the National League. That's a cool deal. I mean, 2 years ago he's winning an SEC, a national championship, and now he's pitching in the All-Star game. That's a cool story.
It is.
I do think you did get a cool story out of the home run derby last night with Cal Raleigh, an ACC guy, and I guess I should say that quietly around here. But he wins the home run derby. His dad is throwing to him, and they put his brother, who's I think he's either high school or maybe in college now. I can't remember. But his brother was the one catching. So it was a full family affair. His dad was throwing to his brother, and he was hitting.
How about that? Pretty cool. Pretty cool.
But that's the best thing I can get out of a home run derby for you.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. And tonight, I mean, the All-Star game again, I don't know how much of it I'll watch, fellas, quite honestly.
And honestly, is it bad that it was, Thursday of last week when I remembered that, hey, we're going to be in Atlanta for SEC Media Days? And,
Yeah.
oh, by the way, the All-Star game I passed the All-Star game when I go home.
Yeah,
And I didn't even think about it until about Thursday of last week.
I didn't even realize it was going on until until my buddy that I've been hanging out with while I'm up here visiting and stuff, is he's going to it tonight, and I didn't even realize it was happening.
Well, regardless, 8 o'clock or 7. Is it 7? I'm trying to find out the exact.
I think it's 7 when the coverage starts. I don't know when the first pitch is, but I know it's
he said
7.
I think my buddy said it starts around 8 o'clock.
Yeah, we might actually get a first pitch at 8 o'clock. That's what I'm hoping for, because I hate these things that say, starts at 8. And
Yeah.
like Mike said, 8:25, we're still not playing yet.
Yeah.
I think most people are going to watch the base. Probably, as far as All-Star games go, this one is the most watched out of all of them. Just because it's in the middle of the summer, what else are you going to watch if you're a sports fan? This is it. I mean, there is nothing else unless you want to watch, some sort of. I guess Raw was on last night. I don't know if anybody would have flipped away from baseball to watch that, but there's really nothing else that's going to compete against it. Maybe that's why, but
yeah.
it's still it's so diluted now. It is so diluted. It wasn't that way back in the day when the American League never played the National League. Well, now everybody plays everybody. So you're going to get to see the American and National League players all over the place. And I think that's changed how the All-Star game is viewed. Plus, how many guys don't play and don't want to play and all that stuff. So.
I also was not a fan of the jerseys.
Yeah, those jerseys are pretty
I
awful.
was not a fan of like the lowercase AL and it's just weird.
Yeah, it's weird. For what it's worth, the 8 o'clock is all I can find out about it starting tonight. Now, I'll say this about the home run derby last night. Truist Park was packed, y'all.
It was slammed.
There was not an empty seat in the place. If you want to try to go tonight, Ticketmaster shows the starting price for one ticket is $220 for standing room only. A ticket that includes an actual seat begins at $330.
Okay, I'm gonna not stand and sit on my couch if I'm gonna watch.
Yes, exactly. Me too. Yeah, I'll be in the.
And not wait on the commodes and things of that sort. No, sir.
During the game, the MLB will pay tribute to Hank Aaron's history-breaking 715th home run, the one that shattered the previous record set by Babe Ruth. The league will recreate the hit by using projection, mapping, and pyrotechnics at the end of the 6th inning or later, depending on the lighting situation. Also worth noting, for the first time, Major League Baseball will use the automated ball strike challenge system, which tracks the pitch's path and location, determine whether it's a strike or ball when it crosses the plate. Again, either a hitter or a pitcher/catcher can ask for a review.
Are you going to review balls and strikes at an All-Star game?
Yes, they will.
I guess just to see if it works.
Yes.
I guess.
If
we got a new toy, we need to check it out, I guess.
If someone asks for it, absolutely, yeah. And 3 pretty cool guys will throw out the ceremonial first pitch. Chipper Jones, Andrew Jones, and Andres Galarraga. All of those guys were members of the National League team when Atlanta hosted the All-Star game at Turner Field back in 2000, the last time it was here. So
I heard an interview with Chipper Jones over the weekend, and they were asking him about, Chris Domino was doing it, asking about, would you ever coach in a game? And would you ever? And I think he's probably had his opportunities. And Chipper has said, hey, I like this side of it. I love being there for my kids, and I'm not going to break that promise.
Yeah.
So I admire that in Chipper Jones, because I think he could probably help our hitters right now a lot. But he's made a commitment, gave his word, and he's going to stick to it. So good for him.
And I would think fewer headaches without that job. I mean, and look, he's been around the program. He's helped them as like a part-time hitting consultant.
Sure. Yes.
And boy, do they need some help from him this year, because their hitting has been crappy, boys and girls. Sorry about that. But hey, it's the All-Star break, so what it is. Ron Acuna Jr. starting in left field and batting second tonight. And Matt Olson of the Braves on the reserve list. Should see him sometime late in the game at first base. All right, one more segment here inside the press box. We'll head back to Atlanta's SEC Football Media Days, Day 2 underway. We'll check the roster for today's lineup after this inside the press box.
What he did, rabbit in maroon and white. The Southeastern Conference. It's here, inside the press box.
All day, every day, online, PressBoxRadio.com, and now video-wise on YouTube.com/PressBoxRadio. Thank you, Colin Lacy, who is alongside Brent Osborne, set up at Digital Drive, the PressBox radio show table there at SEC Football Media Days in downtown Atlanta, College Football Hall of Fame. Meanwhile, on opposite sides of the Atlanta Metro, Mike Mote and Mike Grace, glad to have you with us. Day 2 of the SEC Media Days underway. Georgia head coach Kirby Smart leading things off today. He's joined by quarterback, the junior Gunnar Stockton, senior DB Dalen Everett, and junior linebacker C.J. Allen. Following Georgia is Auburn with head coach Hugh Freeze. He's got his new junior quarterback Jackson Arnold alongside offensive lineman Connor Liu and junior defensive lineman Keldrick Falk. Then the afternoon session, Tennessee and Texas. Tennessee bringing Josh Heupel, obviously, and no quarterback. It's Arian Carter, the junior linebacker, Miles Ketzelman, the tight end, senior tight end, and Bryson Eason, the senior defensive tackle, while Texas and Steve Sarkisian will bring their quarterback, along with junior linebacker Anthony Hill Jr., who's pretty good, by the way, senior DB Michael Taff, and yes, the quarterback sophomore Arch Manning will be a part of the late afternoon contingent at SEC Football Media Days. Now, Arch is getting all the attention. But, fellas, did you hear Diego Pavia, the Vanderbilt quarterback yesterday, appearing in his custom-made tuxedo and bow tie? I know you were impressed with that.
You know,
he's I know they had a great year last year. I know they upset Alabama for the first time in forever. I know they had some big wins. They beat Auburn. They had a huge year.
Sure did.
Diego Pavia and his goals for 2025.
Well, I got to finish something that I started, going 7-6 wasn't good enough, and I want the national championship. And so to be back here, one last dance it's going to be awesome.
And you know what, Diego? I want $1 million, but I don't see it.
What are the odds? I wonder in Vegas for Vanderbilt winning a national championship.
Look, I'm happy for Vanderbilt that they are relevant. They're better. But is Diego setting himself up for a great big fall here?
Well, and my thing too, everybody talks about a great season that Vandy had last year. They were 500. They were 6-6 going into the Birmingham Bowl, and beat Georgia Tech on a day that rained about 37 inches. It felt like.
Yeah.
I don't.
Said like somebody who was on the sidelines or close to it during that game.
Yes, he was.
Sounds like somebody had to get to Shreveport the next day.
Oh, bless your heart. That's even worse.
But I mean, you had the big win against Alabama, and that's what makes everybody start talking.
Right.
But you're still 6-6 at the end of the regular season.
Well, look at the games that got away from them, too.
Right.
I mean, they had Tennessee on the ropes and let them get out of there. I mean, it could have been a lot better season for them, 6-6. And if that's the best, and I think that's probably the greatest win out they've ever had in their program's history.
Yeah.
I do. I think it is. I don't think there's any question. So he can leave campus saying, I beat Alabama, and that's the biggest win in Vanderbilt history. But they're still 6-6 at the end of the day. So what?
And then you go 6-6 in the regular season, 7-6 if you count the bowl game.
Yeah.
And then you come into SEC Media Days looking like Brendan Huff going to a job interview in a tuxedo. Like, I don't understand. Like, I like the confidence. I do. But I don't feel like there's somebody should have stepped in and said, that may not be the best idea here, bud.
I will give it for Clark Lee. And by the way, Clark Lee in Vanderbilt returns what our friend Phil Steele in his magazine calls the most experienced returning roster in all of college football, not just the SEC, but all of college football. And give it up for Clark Lee. He's got those guys believing they can beat anyone. The wins over Auburn and Alabama, the first time they beat both of those teams in the same season in 69 years. But a national championship, you might want to.
Yeah, let's pump the brakes.
I guess. Look, Diego's just doing his thing. Look, he's back for another year. He won his court case with the NCAA to get him another year of eligibility. So why not? He's shooting for the moon, I guess, huh?
Yeah, well, let's tough aim, my friend. Get used to it. You're going to have, even if they're a game better, that's huge for Vanderbilt. 7-5 is tremendous. But just national championship. Okay, we'll see. I won't. I'm not going to put my house up for it. I can tell you. I don't expect that.
They go to South Carolina.
Yep.
They go to Alabama. They get LSU and Missouri in Nashville. Is the stadium finished yet? Do we know?
I think it's supposed to be. I think it's
gotta be. I
supposed
mean,
to
they've
be.
been doing that thing for what
Forever.
feels like 17 years.
They've been
Yeah.
working on it for a decade or so, I think, up there. After LSU and Missouri at home, they go to Texas. They've scheduled Auburn for homecoming.
Good luck with that.
Yeah,
Great.
have fun with that one.
And then they finish with Kentucky at home and on the road at Tennessee.
All right. So how many games on the home schedule will you have more fans than the opposing team?
Kentucky,
Maybe, yeah.
maybe
I would
Missouri.
Missouri,
maybe Missouri.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
But I would imagine the others will have as many, if not more, than you do.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, because the Alabama game last year was 60-40 or 65-35, easy.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe more than that. Yeah, that is not exactly the home field advantage that you have.
And I mean, looking up and down this schedule, I don't know that I find 6 wins, and that's including the Charleston, Southern, Georgia State, and Utah State that they've got in the non-conference slate.
They lost to Georgia State last year.
That's true. I was there.
Yes, they lost to Georgia State last year, and that was that before the Alabama game or after the? I think it was before.
That was.
It was 2 weeks before. Yeah.
2 weeks before. So nobody was thinking
They
because they started 2-0. They beat Virginia Tech. Remember that in the first game of the year in overtime.
Virginia Tech and Alcorn State, and then they lost at Georgia State. At Missouri.
Yeah.
Before they beat Bama. And that was week 5 or game 5 is when they beat Alabama.
And I can assure you that when they go and play at Alabama this year, I mean, one, they will not be taken lightly, I'm sure, by Alabama by any stretch. But I know we don't know exactly how good Alabama's going to be, but you best believe that if they have a chance to run that score up and beat the brakes off of them, they will absolutely do it.
I don't know if it's Kalen DeBoer's style, but he's going to be tempted to score 100 if he can, man.
You can get one at 42-20 and it's 90 seconds to go and you're inside the 5. Yeah, you're going to score.
Yeah.
Let it rip. Tater chip. You're going to stick another one up there. Especially after last year. Yeah, especially after last year. Hey, Vanderbilt's got a couple of those probably coming. Hugh Freeze would like to do the same thing after what they did to them last year.
Hey, speaking of Vandy, I saw something that I think it was Pete Thamel had tweeted out yesterday that Clark Lee had said at Media Day in one of his 1,000 interviews that Martrell Height, who has been the returner and DB for Vandy on the defensive side, they're putting him at wide receiver too. And I'm not necessarily going to say he's going to be a full two-way guy, but you're going to see Height at wide receiver a good bit, which almost, and I get he's a super athlete. He's touched the ball with the return game a lot. But to me, does that not sound like you're searching a little bit?
Well, that's a good compliment to Stowers, though, isn't it? I mean, they're tight end. Yeah. But, I believe you don't have somebody who at least has emerged yet on the receiver from the receiving core. And let's face it, Diego Pavia was running for his life a lot last year.
Correct.
He made plays, no question about that. But, man, you got to find a way to get somebody else involved in that offense. And you're right. I think it is letting you know that there is a weakness at that position. And that's going to be interesting to see how they work that out. I was looking at Ole Miss's schedule. We were talking to them earlier. You realize they play 3 of their 8 SEC games in the month of September. You'll know a lot about Ole Miss
early on.
Early on, and they got some tough ones.
We also didn't realize until Lane was talking about it. Wasn't it him yesterday that was talking about their schedule and that they have, 3 away games total?
They only have 4 true road games and only 3 outside the state of Mississippi.
Yeah.
At Kentucky, at Georgia, and at Oklahoma. The rest of them are either at home or they're at Mississippi State on that last Friday for the Egg Bowl.
Again, I would say don't tell Bart Heitch, but he already knows that. He's been dogging on
We've heard it for years.
Oh, yeah, for years. Yeah.
Well, and I don't know how good Tulane's going to be, but that's been a toughie for Ole Miss of late.
Yeah.
So might want to watch out. And they owe Kentucky one, so that's game number 2 on the schedule coming up on September the 6th. So they'll have to be ready early. to get into league play. They start their league play very early this year.
Let's talk a little bit about the guys that we'll see this afternoon. That will be Tennessee's Josh Heupel, Texas and Steve Sarkisian. Again, we mentioned the Tennessee Volunteers will not bring a quarterback. We assume it's going to be Joey Aguilar, the transfer from Coastal Carolina, who replaced Nico Amaliava after he basically blackmailed them for more money, and they said, see you later.
Yep.
And he signed with UCLA for less money and higher taxes out in the state of California. So no quarterback at media days though for Tennessee, but we will see Arch Manning for Texas. And guys, can he live up to the hype? I mean, I've heard a lot of people talk about this. I don't know, has there ever been more pressure on a single quarterback than what Arch Manning is facing this year?
Good question. I will say this. I don't know so much if it's about, and I know everybody's going to talk about Arch this, Arch that, and Manning did do this, Manning didn't do that. But to me, Texas is, to me, it's not him. It's other places on their team. You got to figure out who's going to be your better wide receiver. I know Wingo's back, but you lost Matthew Golden.
Mhm.
Your running back room's pretty good. Weisner kind of came into his own last year. They're getting Baxter off of injury from a year ago. Their defense is pretty solid, though. I think their defense is maybe their calling card this year. And those are the things that I would be most excited about if I'm Texas, in addition to Manning. But it's going to come back to that. I mean, it will, because everybody's made so big of a deal about it. But to me, I think he's got to figure out who's going to be his favorite targets, because he lost a big one last year, or from last year's team.
And to me, it'll be interesting to see how he's used, because you saw last year, anytime he came into a ball game, you pretty much knew it was going to be on the ground. There wasn't a whole lot of outside
Yeah.
of junk time.
Yep. True.
That's true.
But
That's
and
true.
so anytime you saw him in a meaningful situation, you knew it was going to be on the ground. Now, what does that combination look like? Obviously, he's probably going to run more than the quarterbacks they've had in the last couple of years. But what does that look like, especially with not really knowing who is behind him at this point? You've got a couple of guys on the depth chart that nobody really knows who they are. And so you felt better last year being able to take a little bit more chances because you knew you had other options
Yours. Yeah.
behind it. And so it'll be interesting for me to see how Sark is able to use him and how much he's willing. I don't want to say to put him in harm's way, because obviously every snap you're put in harm's way. But it'll be interesting to see how that's used and what that, to steal a Bart Heights term in the NBA, of load management looks like for him throughout the season.
Kind of reminds me a little bit of what I think everybody thought DJ Lagway was at Florida
Yeah.
last year, a runner.
Yep.
But he's more of a passer.
Yeah.
He is not a runner. He has been labeled that
Ole Miss found
because,
that out.
quote unquote dual threat. I don't know that you could call Arch Manning, he can move around and make plays,
Mhm.
but I think he would prefer, and I think they would prefer, he get the ball to his playmakers and not necessarily be the guy that has to do it for them. That doesn't mean he can't, and it doesn't mean he won't at
Mhm.
times when it needs to be made, and maybe when they least expect it, he can do something like that. But I think he needs to stay in the game, and I think they realize that. And I think Sark's going to do some things he always does, where he gets guys into his offense. So he's got some weapons. We just hadn't seen them yet. We'll just have to see who that guy is, who emerges. And what's interesting, Colin and guys. I mean, Ohio State, your first game.
Yeah.
Is it more about Ohio State defending a championship in week 1 as it is about Texas and Arch Manning? What two storylines you have? The big noon kickoff is dominating the window on August the 30th. They've already won it. Let's just concede it to them, you know?
Yep.
Because what a great story they've got.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Something we talked about yesterday was, I think it was with Tony, is, do we think that Arch can go into the Horseshoe and upset them? And is that a big statement game for him, whether it's a win or a loss? And I really do think, and I'm not completely sold on the Arch Manning thing just yet, just because I just haven't seen him prove himself against really, really good teams in crunch time. But I'm interested to see, and I'll be interested to see as well, as if they do go into the Horseshoe and pull off the upset. I do think that he is going to be set for a pretty good season because of the momentum and the confidence. Now, if they go in and whether they lose a close one or he doesn't play very well and they end up getting blown out, which I don't think would happen, but it could potentially happen. I think that, I mean, that has to play some sort of psyche on you just a little bit as being a young quarterback when all you've heard about is how good you're going to be and just the pressure that you're trying to live up to. And I do think that that first game could be a real telltale sign of what the season looks like for him.
Is it a big upset if they lose that game at Ohio State? How big of an upset is it if Texas goes in there and wins that game?
I think if it's close, it's not.
Yeah. Because I think both teams have a lot to replace from last year, and I think Ohio State has more than Texas does, to be honest with you.
Yep.
I tell you what, here's the thing. We were talking about Ole Miss and their schedule and how it favors them, the few road games they have to play. Texas's schedule includes only 3 true home games, and they're Vanderbilt, Arkansas, and Texas A&M. Those are their true SEC home games. That's it. Vandy, Arkansas, Texas.
Well,
A&M.
that's because they were. If you remember, the big conversation last year was that the theory was that the SEC set them up schedule wise to be able to make a run and everything in their first year in the SEC, and now unfortunately they're facing the consequences of being set up in the first year.
And for what
it's got to be a creative sales job for the team down at Texas, right? Hey, get your tickets now to see Vanderbilt.
By the way, I believe later today the SEC office will send to credentialed media the ballots for SEC predicted order of finish. I'd like to just go on record as saying that my vote is for sale. If there's a fan base out there that wants to buy a vote for their team.
I've seen a couple of folks talk about their ballots that they had seen, and they have one of them had LSU 6th on that ballot.
Well, here's a chance for Diego Pavia to buy his team an SEC championship vote. How about that?
What was it? Somebody last year, 2 years ago, put Vandy to win the SEC, and everybody said they were.
Oh, I think there's always that one that'll do that. Like, really? Come on now. Really? Maybe he'll vote. I don't know.
Well, I'll close that out with 2 media deals. We saw yesterday ABC released the SEC on ABC theme song that they'll use this year.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan.
It's not exactly the CBS.
Well, no, that's what I'm
fanfare.
saying. Give me the SEC. Where are we here? Hang on a second.
That's.
Now that's a damn football open right there.
But if you're comparing that to everything else, nobody's going to beat that.
Oh, nobody's going to beat that. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
So, I mean, cut these guys a little slack at least.
But can we go back to the actual big and rich version of the game?
I love that, by the way. Yes.
It's a big and rich song, and we kicked them off the open last year. I don't.
Yes, we did. We urbanized it or something. I don't know what we did, but
now,
we screwed it up.
On the positive side, SEC media was given the chance to preview last night an episode of the upcoming Netflix documentary that is produced by the same folks who did the Drive to Survive Formula One documentaries, same crew that did the Full Swing PGA documentaries. So again, it's coming in August, I believe it is, and I've heard fantastic things about it.
What is it called?
Any Given Saturday.
That's good.
Yeah, I think it drops August 5th, and the preview and the trailer that they let out last night looks awesome. Pretty legit.
It really looks good. Now that I'm looking forward to, no doubt. Hey, thanks to our crew at SEC Football Media Days, Colin, Lacy, Brent, Osborne. They'll be there all week long, well, at least through Thursday and all the fun. And we'll have any interviews for you throughout the day on PressBoxRadio.com and YouTube.com/PressBoxRadio. Back tomorrow with Bart Heitch and Colin and Brent again. And until Thursday, Mike Mote, have yourself a great day, sir. And we'll talk to you soon.
Y'all have fun. Stay out of trouble in media days.
No
Do what you
problem.
can.
SEC Football Media Days, the Press Box Radio Show. Thanks for being here, guys. We'll see you next time.